Hey guys, this is John. I'm playing I gotta be careful with this one. Shytn in the 5-minute pool on ICC. Let's play G6 against Shytn. He's a shy guy from Tennessee. Don't you guys know? Ignore that Azerbaijani flag. Alright, so we're playing the modern against Mr. Shy guy. Let's check his stats while he's thinking here. Looks like he's kind of had an absence. I'll play c5 against that. He's kind of had an absence from ICC for a little bit because he's not active like in any categories. All right, I'm getting move ordered into a Benoni. Interesting. Yeah, this line. Okay, let's play e6 and play a Benoni all the same. This is like the line that was featured in that Anand Gelfand World Championship match, where you maneuver this knight to c3 so the other one can come to d2. Don't know much about this line, so we're going to be playing it on site. He has a peak 5-minute rating of 2440. Rook e8, just attack e4. How do I want to develop this knight? Knight a6 to c7. Let's do that. Knight d7 would be the more standard route. But maybe we can do it this way. He can install this knight on c4, but I could potentially kick him away with b5. You have to be careful about knight c4, b5, though, because he has knight a5, maybe, trying to get into c6. Okay, so he does like a very typical reaction move to black trying to play b5, and that's to play a4, discouraging it. Let's go b6. Idea bishop a6, especially if he puts the knight on c4. Knight c4, bishop a6, bishop f4, perhaps. We're still going to do this. Bishop f4, knight h5, bishop takes d6, bishop takes c4, removing the defender of this. He wants a trade. So if we trade e2, he has to take with the knight then. I guess I'm okay with that. Go knight d7. So if knight c4, we have knight e5 trying to trade. Because I would like to swap some minor pieces. If a6, knight c4, knight e5, he wins b6. So maybe rook b8 first. Let's play it that way. Bishop f4 makes sense. Knight e5, is he going to play bishop g3 and then go for f4? Looks to be that way. Bishop e5. Let's do knight e5. Knight e4. Knight e5 looks more enterprising than bishop e5. Knight b5. a6. a6, are you going knight a7? If so, wow. I'm going to live with the knight if it comes to a7. Maybe queen f6. We will learn to live with that piece. Queen d7. Queen d7 would actually threaten knight takes d5, but I don't trust it. Well, queen f6. Okay, let's go queen d7. So yeah, I'm trying to take here, opening up a discovery on this knight. If knight c6 immediately, I would just take it. So, okay, so they're going to put the knight in there. I have to move my rook now. Rook b7 or rook a8? Let's go rook a8. This is going to be a pest. It's going to be a huge bother. Wow, he just takes. Okay. Surprised by this. So for e7, maybe e5. And take and then d6. Okay, so let's go back. And I can try to go b5 in order to gain counterplay. e5 is coming. They're trying to play that move, I think. b5, e5. b5, e5. Maybe c4 then. Man, I don't know. I need counterplay regardless. If take, I can at least take with the knight. Might be good. Trying to swap. Before they can go e5 and stick the knight in on e4, because I'm paranoid about that knight getting into striking range of f6. I would love to avoid that. Okay, let's take. We'll get a passed pawn out of the bargain. Let's go rook e7, just in preparation for e5. Problem is our a6 pawn might be hanging, but I'd probably trade that a6 pawn for the e4 pawn, if allowed. Yeah, maybe queen b5 now. So they can go e5 next move. I better take a measure against that. Can they still play e5? Take, and then d6. I might have e4. Is e4 any good? Not sure, but I'll try it. If we swap everything on e4, I win. Okay, I win the d6 pawn at the end of this line. d7 doesn't work, of course. Rook d4. Rook d4, right? It just wins. There's also rook e1 check. King f2. Rook d4 is good. Yeah, he missed this move. And he resigned. Strange end of the game because he was kind of cruising along until the time that he played e5. Let's have a look. So I played the modern, and he played a line that I've previously had some problems against, which is when they just put all the pawns out here on e4, d4, c4, and keep their piece development flexible. Because now it's sort of like black has to commit to some sort of setup instead of reacting to their minor piece placement. So I played c5, he went d5. Now we have a Benoni. Yeah, and this is an interesting knight maneuver. It makes a lot of sense because with this knight being on d2 in the future and possibly having access to c4, white can arguably circumvent a lot of the knight maneuvers that they have to do in standard Benoni middle games with like the knight coming to f3 and then later to d2. So e6, bishop e2 I took. These moves all looked pretty standard. Knight a6, I'm just bringing the knight to c7. I could also play like pawn a6, a4 to stop me from playing b5 and then knight bd7. But I have some experience in like the Schmid Benoni, which is another related line, where black goes knight a6, knight c7, b6, sometimes a6, rook b8, and then a gradual b5. I feel like the knight is useful on c7, often more so than the knight being on d7, where it blocks the other knight from coming to d7. So f3, let's add in the engine right now. Knight c7, a4. Not surprising that the engine gives white a big advantage. That's pretty standard for Benoni positions. It really likes white space in this line. Knight c4, I played bishop a6. And the Benoni does have a bit of a dodgy reputation. Oh, did I miss a tactic here? Knight f takes d5. Yep, didn't see that. So that's trying to exploit the weakness of e2. So if, for instance, e takes, then I take on c3, removing the guard. And if they take a6, I have this in-between bishop d4 check, saving the piece. And then after they move their king, then I take. And I've won a pawn. That's the nuts and bolts of that combination. And if they take with a knight, bishop takes e2, hitting the queen. Yeah, kind of dragging their queen in here, and then take, and there's a pin. That would have been a nice resource. That's the thing of the Benoni, like, sometimes you stumble on a tactical resource, and if you don't take advantage of it right away, it disappears, and you might be left with a passive position. So dynamic players really trend towards openings like the Benoni or the King's Indian, where you can counterattack and set your opponent up for tactical shots. But you know, more positional-minded players like myself might not be as not receptive, but I might not be searching for tactical solutions to the position as often as like regular Benoni and King's Indian players, more aggressive-minded players. I did mention that queen takes e2 would be bad because of that, but I just didn't see it in the other form. So he took with his knight. I think my position is reasonable now. I don't have any problems with my minor pieces coordinating with each other. I've managed to exchange a pair of minor pieces, which in the Benoni is favorable to black if they can do that. And here I was just looking for counterplay, like trying to prepare a6, b5. f5 would be interesting. I saw the engine just had suggested that. Striking back at white's center. So rook b8, they went bishop f4, knight e5, knight into b5. I didn't want to take because I thought they would take with the a pawn, and then I have this backward pawn here. They have double isolated pawns, but the pressure on a7 is palpable. Computer thinks it's fine, though. Queen d7, just guarding. Also keeping an eye on b5. Maybe knight c4 is coming. So I played a6, but that invites the knight to jump in, so it might be a mistake. I was a little surprised that in this position, they just played knight takes e5. I thought they might try to milk that knight on c6 longer, but they might have just made a judgment call that my dark square bishop was at least as good as that knight. So they swapped, and they might be right about that too, because they have some nice center play. Here I think it's important I play rook e8, because if I play rook e7, then this move is possible right away, or at least I thought, because if take, then d6 forks the rook and the knight. So I went back rook e8. Yeah, and I wonder if they could go e5 right away, with the express goal of playing knight e4 and trying to get in here. Or maybe d6 after that, too. d6, attacking the knight. And even though it's not a fork this time, it's still probably pretty good. Here, knight d5. Ugh. Knight f6 is threatened. Knight takes b6 is threatened. With queen c7, probably just take back. Awesome position for white. The knight's getting into f6. I'm going to have all sorts of trouble with my king and just keeping stuff defended, period. Yep. Standard idea for the Benoni. Trying to play e5 against that pawn on d6 and put a minor piece in behind it. Preferably a knight so you can get at that f6 point, and also these weak squares like d6 and c5. So he perhaps could have executed that sooner. Here I think f5. Yeah, I like that suggestion of the engine. Keeps an eye on the e4 square. If they take, I can probably take either way, maybe with the queen even. And try to make sure that the knight never makes an appearance there. It's a good suggestion. I played b5, but I was really worried about this move if they had played it. I didn't have a follow-up in mind. I mean, b4 just pushes them to where the knight wants to go. But I was also pretty far behind on the clock here. I just wanted to make a quick decision. But yeah, e5 would have been potentially painful. And that's why I took with the knight, because if pawn takes, it maybe gives them a chance to change their mind about e5. So I wanted to get those knights off the board ASAP. So he played rook e1, I took. Yeah, and it might just be the case that even though I have a pass pawn, it's not threatening at the moment, and it's more important that they're gearing up for e5. So my problems don't run away just because I've traded knights. e5 is still a threatening move on the horizon. I try to trade queens, and then queen b8. I think if they would have either prepared e5 or just held off on it entirely, they would have had much better chances, because maybe it's playable right now, but I can't really do much if I need my queen on b8, my rooks here and here, all prioritized to defending the e5 square. So maybe they can just make a left move like h3. I'd probably do something like that if I were white. Given the time disadvantage, too, this would be an unpleasant type of move to meet, forcing me to come up with something to do. I probably would have pushed my a pawn, but where's it going to go? I mean, even if I get it up to a4, it's still not doing much. Maybe I can play queen b3 eventually. But I bet they could even switch the focus and start attacking that a pawn and just keep a reserve guard guarding the pawn on e4. See what happens. But he played e5, I took. And then d6, yeah. The computer says just play some other pawn move, like this. And I guess I'm pinned, so maybe they can win e5 whenever. Later on, but the idea itself, e5, is flawed. Like trying to follow e5 with d6. Like normally that's a good idea, but I'm pretty sure they just missed e4. And then if they had moved their queen like this, I was planning on playing rook d7, and after a trade I win d6, I think, unless there's a tactical problem. I think it's okay to do that, or rook takes. Yeah. So they did this, and then erroneously played d7, allowing rook d4 with the win, but after queen takes and take here, I still have good chances to win. The time, though, could have made it a challenge. But now I'm just up the pawn for free, kind of depressing for white. Yeah, now he loses his d-pawn. Okay, so I think this is like actually a pretty model game for how you want to play this line for white, the knight maneuvering over to c3. This can be played against the Benoni or even the King's Indian. And yeah, white did well. He just mistimed the e5 break. It would have been more effective earlier when the knight could come to e4. Yeah, basically starting like probably even right here, right? This is the first moment that it was good. e5 with the knight coming in behind. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll be back tomorrow with another Blitz video. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.